All right, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the camera that I recently resurrected, and honestly, I never thought that this camera would ever work again. It's a point-and-shoot film camera, as you saw in the intro, and although this is still a very favorite camera of mine, the Olympus Stylus Mu1, and in fact, the camera that I've been using the most probably for the past 2 years, this is the camera that I actually want to talk about. It is the Canon Prima Mini Date. Is that focusing? Ooh, here. Let me tell you the story about this camera. So this camera, I actually bought it about 3.5, 4 years ago. Bought it on eBay for like 30 bucks. And I actually bought it because at the time, I only had one film camera, I had a film camera, which was the Canon QL17, a rangefinder camera, but I wanted something that was a little more user-friendly because at that point, I didn't really shoot film and I didn't really understand how to shoot film, so I wanted to point and shoot and stumbled across a YouTube video talking about this camera. I liked the images that the person was showing, and so bought this camera from, I think, Europe for like, again, 30, 35 bucks. And when I got it, I was super stoked because like all point and shoot film cameras, you literally just load film into it and you just start firing. So I took probably 12 to 15 rolls on this camera of my personal life, of our family, and we were actually on vacation about 3.5 years ago, and we were at this restaurant, and I remember I set the camera on the table with our jackets, and as we were about to leave, we were grabbing our jackets, and I kind of just like swiped this camera off the table, and it fell and it shattered this part right here. And after that, the camera just wouldn't work. Thankfully, the roll that I had in there was finished. But yeah, at that point, this camera basically became a mantelpiece. It just sat on one of our shelves since. And then because this camera went out of commission, that's when I picked up the Olympus Stylus, the Mu1. And this is a great camera, don't get me wrong. I love that right when you open it up, it's on and ready to fire. One of the things I care the most about with point and shoots is that they're very quick and efficient and easy to use, especially with having 2 young children like myself. Moments happen very quickly, and so this camera has been perfect since breaking this camera, the Prima Mini Date. And yeah, this has been my trusty camera for the past couple of years. Absolutely love it still. But about 2 weeks ago, I was looking at this camera again on the mantle and was thinking to myself, do I just get rid of this now? It's been sitting there for 2 years. I haven't touched it. It doesn't work. And so I was like, you know what? I don't know why I had this thought, but I was like, I've got a bunch of batteries for both of these point and shoots. It was sitting on the shelf as well. I was like, let's just put one more battery through it just for fun. And so I put a fresh battery through it and the camera turned on. I don't know why all of a sudden it worked, because when this first broke, I tried 3 or 4 different types of batteries, all fresh and new batteries, and none of them would revive this camera. And so I really thought it was beyond repair or beyond fixable. And I don't know, 2 weeks ago, I put a camera battery into it. The camera turned on. I thought maybe it was a fluke, so I tried a few more batteries and they all worked. The camera was functional. And so, like most of the film cameras that I first buy, I always put black and white rolls through them just to make sure they work properly. And so I was like, all right, this camera works. Let's push a couple black and white rolls through it. And lo and behold, the camera worked perfectly fine. And so for the past 2 weeks, I have been taking a ton of photos on this. I've probably shot about 8 or 9 rolls now through this camera, and it looks awesome. And this will likely replace my Olympus Stylus for a few reasons. Definitely not size, because again, they're very, very similar in size. One of the main reasons is because the lens focal length. The Stylus is actually a 35mm lens, but the Prima Mini Date is 32. So although that's not a huge difference, it's enough of a difference where I'm getting a little wider in my compositions. And again, with this primarily being a camera that I use to document my personal life and with my kids, any extra compositional space is a plus for me. So that's probably the biggest reason why I will start using this more. It's pretty quick to turn on, just like the stylus. So it's not as fast as a stylus, but still fast enough. The other thing I really like about this camera is it's got the buttons in the back where you can adjust and create timestamps for your photos. Something that the stylus unfortunately does not have, at least the Mu 1. But it's really cool to be able to date and timestamp the photos that I'm taking on this camera, which is just a nice little cool feature. But beyond that, I mean, like, this camera is fantastic. The other thing I like a lot too is that for some reason with my stylus, and this might just be my unit, maybe because I have dropped it a few times or I've beaten it up, but I find that sometimes it has a hard time focusing, especially when the light is mixed lighting or when it's in a dark scene where I know the flash is required. And sometimes it just hunts and hunts and hunts for focus and it takes forever, which has been a bummer. This camera, on the other hand, very quick to focus and very quick to fire. So it's really those three reasons why I will likely move forward with using this camera a lot more frequently than my stylus. But yeah, that's the story of how I basically resurrected this camera simply by putting a new battery into it 2 years later. I couldn't tell you why. It's still strange to me. I still don't understand. Yeah, $30 camera, 3.5, 4 years later, and it's working again. And that's the story of how I resurrected this film camera. Both still great cameras. Love both cameras. That's it. All right. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.